Have we failed an entire generation by forcing tech into the classroom? Here's what went down. In the early 2010s, it was the digital revolution. We were told by tech companies that our kids need to be digital super learners or they will be left behind. So schools signed up for one-to-one Chromebooks and iPads, one device for every child. After this decades-long hardware dump onto students, have the promises delivered? What's insane is that the opposite happened. Kids' test scores across the globe plummeted in math, in science, and in reading. And this well predates COVID. It lines up directly with the introduction of one-to-one device programs. Hundreds of research studies show students who use computers frequently at school do a lot worse in most learning outcomes. Expanding access to computers does not improve K-12 grade test scores. Online courses lower student academic achievement compared to in-person courses. And even small amounts, just 30 minutes a day of use of digital devices in the classroom, are negatively related to scores on reading comprehension tests. It begs the question, why are children not learning from screens? There are many reasons that are being explored, but one of the biggest is multitasking and distraction. The gateway to learning, according to researchers, is attention. We cannot keep a child's attention on one task when they are working on a device that has access to millions of other things. On a device where they play Roblox and watch YouTube. Kids try to multitask, and research shows that multitasking is among the worst things that students can do for learning and memory. When people multitask, they go slower, accuracy drops, and learning decreases significantly. In a typical academic school year of 36 weeks, a student spends 198 hours using digital devices for learning, and they spend over 2,000 hours using these exact same tools to jump around between other media. So 80% of the time they spend on their school devices is spent multitasking. When a child uses a computer for homework, for example, they typically last only 6 minutes before accessing social media or messaging a friend. So it makes sense that during class, a student would spend 38 minutes of every hour off task. And these off-task activities can be harmful. There are thousands of stories of students in class getting groomed on Discord, watching a self-harm video on YouTube, looking at pornography, playing violent video games. With platforms built to be addictive, it's no wonder that kids are spending a ton of time on these devices. Parents report that kids are spending over 5 hours a day at school, plus after school doing homework on the device. Dozens of peer-reviewed studies show a strong correlation between excessive tech use and a decline in mental health. Large amounts of time on screens leads to higher rates of sadness, suicidal ideation and planning, sleep disorders, obesity, issues with their eyesight, even curvature of their spine. No one can argue that this amount of screen time is good for children. But it's big business for big tech. The ed tech companies are making a ton of money. Here in the US, our government spends over $30 billion annually on educational technology. And the users are our kids. Their data is the price that we unknowingly pay for their right to an education. This is evident in a lawsuit that has just been filed against ed tech giant PowerSchool, who has allegedly illegally collected and sold the data of 60 million students and teachers without the teacher or the parents' consent. Some countries are now correcting, while others dig their heels in on ed tech. Schools across Europe and Southeast Asia and Sweden are moving away from student-facing digital tech back to traditional methods. Here in the US, public schools have largely stuck with their digital programs, so parents are left with the option to homeschool or move to low-tech private schools or classical charter schools. But all schools, here in America and everywhere, would clearly benefit from a similar shift away from dependence on tech, back to traditional methods that we know work, face-to-face, hand-to-paper, flashcards, textbooks, using their hands and not just to swipe. Can technology supplement learning? Of course, but we cannot keep outsourcing the job of education to screens. We have to stop forcing teachers to use tech starting in pre-kindergarten, when doing so is more harmful than beneficial. Nearly a quarter of teachers say that they are being instructed to use more ed tech with little to no evidence of the effectiveness of the digital tools. I urge schools to look at the data, look at your students, and assess how they are really doing. Reduce your use of ed tech. Start using tech later. Use it less. Use it intentionally. In doing so, we will see improvements in student learning, in their health, mental and physical, in their relationships, in everything. Thank you to neuroscientist and educator Jared Cooney Horvath for your article in the After Babel Substack, which I used to pull a lot of this data from. I encourage parents to bring up this topic with your school. I have resources coming very soon to help you do just this. Our children deserve better. If we work together, we can get our kids back on on track back to prioritizing human experiences over digital ones. Because, as Professor Paul Thomas wisely stated, teaching is a human experience. We need to keep it that way.